Man, I remember when I thought that this was a good idea to just tease the idea, but not actually retcon it. Too bad that didn't stick for the rest of the show.
Ooh, that's a hot mug, guy.
Hey guys, this is my review for Supernatural Season 9, Episode 18, Metafiction. This episode has me thinking a few things. Again, we were into a space where I really don't remember much of how this season ends. We have been watching a lot of episodes that I just don't remember. I never did a rewatch of season basically 6 to 15. I never did it. As we're coming to the end of my entire marathon of all the episodes, there are moments like this where Gabriel supposedly returns. I actually could not remember how that storyline concluded in this episode, and that was actually a joy to me. That was enjoyable. And the reason why is because I was able to think ahead to that terrible retcon during the Andrew Dabb era where they brought Gabriel back for no fucking discernible reason. I was able to know that this is not who this is, so who is this? Most likely it is Metatron, but who is it to be? After a really enjoyable change of the opening, Metatron talks to you, supposedly the viewer being Meta, and talking about what makes a good story. And this is a split episode for the sake of conjoining at the end, with it being about Castiel searching more into this events, these kind of the wake of what Metatron and Gadriel's partnership is doing, involving this supposed marker that is acting as a horn or a beacon essentially for angels, and it is further gathering those who are on Metatron's side and those who want to fight against him. Castiel again trying to not want to be a leader, but finding that he is in that situation of the Jon Snow, I don't want it, finding that he probably has no choice in this matter because who else is going to do it? All at the same time, Sam and Castiel find a lead on Gadriel, which, by the way, they make a reference to someone at the very beginning of the episode, and it's not mentioned in the recap. Who the fuck are they talking about here?
Did we work a case in Ogden?
It was a witch situation, right?
There was that kid in town that helped us, wasn't there?
Yes. We should call him, see if he's still in business.
Yeah, what was his name?
Are they talking about the guy who has the store that Gadriel goes to and then kills? Was that the reference? I do not remember this guy from anything. So please, someone in the comments explain to me if this guy was actually in a previous episode. But they were able to capture Gadriel, and they get to a point where they're pretty on edge with this guy. I do love how they catch him too.
Hey, douchebag.
Remember me?
Sam clearly wants to beat the shit out of him. He wants to kill him for an extent for revenge. Whereas Dean also wants it, but he is trying to be of the more sound mind, at least until Sam leaves. Because while this is all going on, Castiel has disappeared with Gabriel, supposedly Gabriel. And it was nice to see Richard Speight Jr. back in the show again, basically do the character to a T as he always has done.
Hey, what's up, shorties? Remember me? The guy who died for your sins? No, not the cat with the beard and the sandals. The hot one.
But the whole time you're there, you're like, who is this? What's going on here? How is this conspiring? While you are pretty sure it's Metatron, they give you a good run for your money, and they thankfully don't do it long enough that you totally know it's not him. It's when they're at the gas station that Castiel is able to figure out via the torn thread, which you have to admit that was a pretty big red herring. You kind of wondered why that was even done in the first place, but it was useful in the terms of finding out that Gabriel was not in fact alive. But they did leave you that little note though.
Are you dead?
I did like how he didn't answer the question. I don't like what came of the answer later on, but I did like what they did there. I'm not going to deny that. And it turns out that Metatron is coercing Castiel. Not even coercing, he wants him to fall into line. This is very much akin to how Chuck was able to see the future, but Metatron is writing the story that he believes is going to happen, and he knows the characters will follow through on. He's not doing this because he is being told this is what will happen. He believes this to be happening. And because he has so much power, it is in a sense kind of happening. While Cass is able to kind of fight it off, there is this interesting element where he finds Hannah, who I remember her. While I don't remember much of season 9 and 10, I do remember Hannah, because I remember that she kind of sacrifices herself when she goes away or she goes back to heaven or something like that. We have with Dean near on killing Gabriel. We're going back to season 4 in terms of torture Dean here, and he really wants to. And you can see that Gabriel actually kind of is playing his own card. Everyone is showing their hand in a sense throughout this episode. And while there is some admitted retconning where Metatron gives Castiel all of the knowledge of all film and television and books,
I know it's a bit of a retcon, but it's going to make this whole conversation a lot easier.
it's not essentially setting up stuff like I've said in the past. This is a good story. This is a good, entertaining episode. It kind of comes out of nowhere, whereas the plot's been like this, trying to figure out what the fuck's going on. And even in this episode, they don't seem to know if they want to commit to things like, is heaven actually closed to angels? Are the dead actually just staying in the veil? They're kind of like, maybe these things we said are kind of too stupid to commit to. There are those little critiques of the episode per se, but I actually did enjoy metafiction. I liked it. I thought it was an entertaining little whoop. And admittedly it is, guys. We're in the last 5 episodes of season 9, and I can actually say I am interested. I am engaged. The season so far has been kind of like this. Never really a high note, but some pretty burrs. But this episode at least had something for it just on its own merit. So in the end, I'm going to give Metafiction a 5 out of 7. But those are my thoughts about this episode. Let's see what you guys have to say. I love the conversation between Cass and Dean at the beginning. I love how they're both worried about each other. Second, this episode focuses on a rivalry, which can be good, but also bad. Starting off with Castiel and Metatron. I love their conversation, and this is a great, intense reunion after Season 8's finale, and furthers Cass's own storyline. But there's also 2 issues with Metatron. First is that the little time is focused on Metatron's plans, true off of any kind of villain in the season. Second, with Metatron feels like Cass's foe, he feels so disconnected from the brothers. And then there's the reunion between Dean and Gabriel. I love seeing these two face off. With Gad trying to get into Dean's head and Dean realizing it, stopping himself and turning the tables and verbally beating the angel down. Had it not been for the mark, Dean would have probably left it there. But the issue, I think, is the possession of Sam would have the most hate and rivalry with Gabriel than Dean. And Sam is angry, sure, but his rage comes across as a pouting child rather than Dean's venomous rage. I can actually agree with that one. There's just been more focus and build up with Dean and Gabriel, and there've been more screen time together than Sam has. So Sam feels so disconnected, just not that these two are from the whole episode. I feel like that was the reason why. I think it was better that Dean is there because he's like, yo, you said you were going to help my brother and you used that against me. To be frank, the show had a problem with its villains giving them more scenes with Dean and developing the more rivalries between them and Dean personally than with Sam. Oh, Sam, like you said, like Sam's such a fucking backseat driver in this. Not even a backseat driver. He's just a passenger. He barely gets lines. For some reason, rather than give Sam his own villains, like Dean and Cass and the higher-ups, just decided to keep bringing Lucifer, aka Sam's greatest personal foe, over and over, to the point where the Ruination, even then, they didn't have Sam to be the one who killed him. It would rather be Dean than Michael to do the deed. Yeah, no, Sam has definitely lost his purpose, I feel. Metafiction, it's honestly my second favorite episode of the season. I just love how Metatron is such a smart villain. It's because he's so smart that it bugs me that he gets less. We get less of him in this entire season, and he's set up to be one of the big bads. I love his snobbish, scholarly attitude when it comes to writing. I also love that this episode is in Utah, where I am from the United States. It doesn't get quite capture the culture, but it's still a win. And there also is a situation with Gabriel in the episode, and I love that it's not really him, and as a means to try and motivate Castiel to lead the angel army. It also brings up a great point of what happens when an angel steals another angel's grace. I appreciate that there's consequences to it. Dean torturing Gabriel is also satisfying as Dean slips further into the darkness. This is done much better than the previous episode. Well, yeah, come here, bitch. Look at me, bitch. Sorry, no, that's the next episode. And tries to get into Dean's mind with the Mark of Cain going on. I don't care what anyone else says, but I love using what others hate in this episode, and I honestly had a lot of fun watching it and rewatching it. It is actually, I liked it. I think it's okay. But we have a negative one here. The bad episode, the only good parts are Metatron upgrading Castiel's knowledge of pop culture and Castiel finding the mark. When they captured Gabriel, I hope there would be other rings to set up. It's just dumb luck, the right spot that he would appear. At least they didn't retcon Gabriel's death, but obviously season 13 exists. I don't know. I thought it was okay with the capture, and I also think that there's some good setup in it. I don't know. I don't think this is really a bad episode. Even though it was good to see Metatron and Gabriel, he's still a weak villain to me. He's trying to manipulate Castiel to joining his side. Wasn't a good plan, and didn't make sense to even have, though Metatron was right and Castiel being different from the other angels. I knew that it wasn't really Gabriel appearing in the episode, just something was off. Oh yeah, I think that the idea of Metatron being this ultimate puppet master is a great idea, and there are some gleams of it in this episode and in the season, but it's so few and far between that it doesn't work so well, and it's why he's such he's such a mediocre villain, truly speaking. All right, guys, thank you for your comments. But now we're moving on to episode 19, Alex, Annie, Alice, Anne. Now, this is a big episode for me because it's nothing to do with the plot. It actually is my 300th episode of Supernatural that I've ever reviewed. Not total videos, obviously, because there's best, worst seasons and theories and whatnot. Full on 300 episodes. I will only have 27 episodes left of this show to review after next week's episode. So make sure to give your guys' thoughts about that episode in the comments below, and I'll read those off in the next review. It's a big milestone, so hope you guys tune in next week. If you like this video, leave a like, and if you're interested in more, subscribe. Join the Discord, as always, link in the description as well. Oh, and if any of you were wondering why I was wearing this, Vancouver's playing Montreal tonight. We'll find out if they win or not. Maybe I'll make a note about it or something when I come to this episode in my editing schedule. Anyways, see you guys later.